and many of Sainath's students have themselves gone on to win major national and international awards. The project that Sainath expressly wished us to talk about is really close to his heart, and that is the People's Archive of Rural India, PARI, which has won a total of 13 journalism awards since it was set up in 2016, the latest being a story by PARI fellow PART-3 that won the European Commission's Lorenzo Natali Prize for the Asia-Pacific region. PARI is a multimedia digital platform published in 13 languages, which is wholly dedicated to rural India and takes no funds from governments or corporations. It is a free service with no subscription fee, carries no advertising, and prefers to run on public and individual donations. So these kinds of online archives and citizen journalism are in fact part of the growing global resistance to corporate control of the media, disrupting media monopolies. It is entirely appropriate, therefore, that the first NEELABH MISHRA Memorial Lecture by Sainath should be on the corporatization of the media. My tongue can't get itself around this horrible phrase because it is such a hideous thing that is happening to the media. The corporatization of the media and resistances to it. And we expect that after Sainath speaks, we would have about maybe half an hour for discussion. But nobody will stop Sainath from speaking, so if we have no time for discussion, he needs to play. Sainath.
Thank you very much. I wish this were not a memorial lecture, but it is, and it's for my old friend NEELABH MISHRA. I received a message from a couple of friends in Delhi. Apparently I still have a couple left. And it was, as most messages from my kind of friends are, a very disparaging and mean-minded one. It said, P.S., how are you going to inspire all those young people out there this evening? Suggestion, move to front center of the stage, put your palms on the floor, and meet the Rator Fitness Challenge with 30 push-ups. As you can imagine, they are no longer my friends. But I have nothing against push-ups. I love push-ups, but I'm a lot better at put-downs. So that's what we will get into tonight, if you're okay with that. You know, it's a very bizarre kind of a thing when you live in with an establishment and a dispensation that is, you know, makes a word like Kafkaesque sound very weak. What's worrying is that, yes, sometimes the media do report this, and I'm going to be telling you that today the problems of the media are not about a bad newspaper or a good newspaper. It's not about individual journalists who are sold out or not sold out or things. It's not about that at all. And it's not, by the way, about a couple of anchors who drive everyone, you know. I mean, it's not about a couple of insane anchors. Though I do concede that we have some who give insanity a bad name. But it's something much more structural. Okay? It's sad though, and at the same time, if you look at it content-wise, it's sad that many of the bizarre stuff that happens every day in extremely sensitive fields like education, health, are simply either reported very, very, you know, in a very anodyne fashion, and no editorial comment because you're scared as hell of offending, you're scared as hell of offending the government of the day. Sometimes they are reported. I'm not going to be disparaging about the entertainment value of many members of our government. I mean, whether it is the Prime Minister's Paleolithic plastic surgery illusion, or, I, like most people of my class background and generation, discovered the internet in the late 1990s or early 2000. Imagine my mortification on learning that our ancestors had been sitting on it 9,000 years without telling us. My favorite, though, is my old police commissioner from Mumbai and Pune, Mr. Satyapal Singh. And before you start drawing any conclusions, I support and endorse a couple of the points he's made, but it's the third point that is the most interesting. Satyapal Singh, of course, look, when disparaging Darwin's theories, that's okay. He's making the point that no one is beyond criticism. Darwin is certainly not beyond criticism. The second point he's making is that, which I agree with that, I also agree with the fact that he says, nobody has gone into the jungles and watched apes turn into men. This is a fact. It's irrefutable. Nobody has watched apes turn into men, but we live in privileged times when we get to see Mr. Singh, Satyapal Singh, and so many of his colleagues in government attempt the reverse process with some success. The media, look, the kind of people you're having, the kind of people the media are quiet about, scared of, pussyfooting about. How many of us simply are willing to take an editorial position and say that they have simply no place in subjects like education. They shouldn't be allowed anywhere within a mile of an educational institution, or a science congress, and the rest of it. But the media, and that's what today is about, there's a point beyond which they cannot either speak the truth or criticize beyond a point. And I don't know about you, but I hate that cliche about speaking the truth to power. It's a very stupid line, really. What is, when you say, let's speak the truth to power, there is an assumption that power is innocent and naive. And if you tell them the truth, they will sort out everything, right? I think the time is to speak the truth about power. To say that these dangerously challenged intellects should not be anywhere near the sensitive portfolios and subjects they are. And that also to say that I have never seen the media and the intelligentsia so intimidated intellectually. I also know that before I get into the structural stuff, at least half a dozen people on the way asked me about, what about Cobra Post? What do I think will happen? I think certain things are already happening. And by the way, I have to tell the Cobra Post guys that I take the Times of India's claim of a counter sting very seriously. I mean, they're damn serious about it. They conducted a counter sting. Imagine, they rolled out their most important undercover reporter for the purpose, Vinny Jain. The Ben Begdikian of Boribandar. Well, number one method is silence or unofficial denial. They can do this because they know that 90% of the media are in the same racket. Okay? So they know that others are not going to point fingers at them. Maybe a few valiant websites and people like that. But since most of the others have their hand in the till, they're going to keep quiet or report it very mildly. The second, my favorite, is the counter sting claim. The third will be it was not my voice, it was forgery. We have to send it for forensic analysis in a laboratory overseas, which takes only 5 years. And fourth is the vilification of the reporter and the organization, which is well underway and going on quite enthusiastically. 5 will come. We thought he was a madman. We were humoring him. 6th is going to be litigation. But the 7th is going to be to shift the focus, if anything comes out of it, to shift the focus like we saw the media shift the focus in the Radia tapes issue. Okay? In the Radia tapes issue, it became about the journalists, who were pretty stupid to have done what they did and pretty silly to speak the way they did. But the important issue of the Radia tapes was something else, that a bunch of corporate CEOs could decide who should get what portfolio in a government, in a cabinet. That was the issue. And then Mr. Tata reacted pretty much the way Dainik Bhaskar has reacted to the Cobra Post. He went to the court to stop the use of the tapes by the media the way they were doing. I love the extremely strong language that Mr. Tata used. I'm quoting him verbatim. He said that we are in the danger of becoming a banana republic. One run on cronyism. It's bad for people of lesser power. Thankfully, Mr. Tata is not a person of lesser power. In banana republics, they go to jail without adequate evidence, or their bodies are found in the trunks of cars. Boy, that's a grisly thought. Normally, though, that happens to RTI activists, to whistleblowers, to people leading anti-displacement struggles. That's who it happens to normally. But I do understand Mr. Tata's concern about bodies in the trunks of cars. As a leading car manufacturer, and the Jaguar, where you can fit 2 bodies into a trunk, he had concerns. 8 points about the media as it stands today. And then we move back structurally. 1, the fundamental feature of the media of our times, and for the last 20 years, is the growing disconnect between the mass media on the one hand and mass reality on the other. That is the fundamental feature of the media of our times. The Indian media are politically free but imprisoned by profit. 3, what you see in the media is a structural shutout of the poor and the marginalized, not indifference, not neglect, but a structural shutout. 4 had 2 phases. The first phase was the corporate hijack of the media agenda. The second phase was the corporate takeover of the media itself. 5, a corporatization of media, ownership, culture, and of audiences themselves. 6, I believe the Indian media, of which I am a part, and have been for 38 years, is the most exclusionist institution of Indian democracy. In terms of representation of different sections and diversity amongst our population, amongst our people, the worst of governments is better than the best of media. In terms, you have the most narrow caste and class basis in control of the media. You've had Chief Justices of India who are Dalits, you've had 2 presidents who are Dalits, you've had any number of chief ministers who are Dalits, but try finding me a chief sub-editor who is a Dalit in a mainline national newspaper, or an Adivasi for that matter. Many years ago, my friend Professor Prabhat Patnaik put it so beautifully when he said, the moral universe of the media has shifted. Unfortunately, that accompanies a gigantic material shift. The material universe of the media and its gigantic shift is obviously coterminous with the moral shift. The media are we also have to see them now as a key figure of the establishment and the corporate world. Pushing economic policy, influencing it very strongly, the media is an ideological arm of the corporate world. 9, I'm going to speak to you about the new convergence, a non-technological convergence, which I will come to, in how 3 different distinct streams of Indian society have come together, wielding power like you've never seen before in the media. 10, I'm arguing that the media, with its shift, many of these journals, newspapers were very cash-rich 10, 15 years ago. They shifted into the market. They moved their money into shares, their wealth into, market, notional wealth on the market. And they're trapped by it like they were after the Wall Street collapse, which is when you saw the rise of paid news. Because the media are too heavily involved in the market to ever tell you the truth about it. I'm very pleased to say that I'm not the only one speaking about the dangers of corporatization. I'd like to quote for you from a very insightful speech by Justice Ranjan Gogoi, a speech he made at this Diamond Jubilee celebration of the Assam Tribune, where he has this to say. Justice Gogoi says this about corporatization of the media. Today, while the Orwellian censorship of the emergency may not be in place, other challenges and changes have assumed its place. Highly corporatized media and press is a growing trend, and that is getting institutionalized. I repeat, this is not me, it's Justice Gogoi. Highly corporatized media and press is a growing trend that is getting institutionalized. A change that is diametrically opposed to the verity that reporting ought to be without fear or favor. The adversarial relationship is bound to soften and is perhaps softening already. The malice of prior restraint, a historic remnant, is being replaced by self-restraint and self-censorship by the media itself. That's Justice Ranjan Gogoi speaking this year, last year at the October, at the Diamond Jubilee celebrations of the Assam Tribune. We are in a period of time when the ownership concentration is at its highest in our history. Very, very few people control the bulk of media. It's a worldwide phenomenon. You're seeing just now the restrictions on Time Warner and AT&T and all those are being lifted in the United States by the courts. But here's one reason I began by saying, you're not going to be able to do this. The corporate media cannot stand up to government. They cannot tell you the truth. Very simple reason. Every major privatization of the last 25 years, amongst the top beneficiaries have been the media owners. Okay? Every single, that influences everything they cover. They've got too much to lose. So even when they are hurt by something like demonetization, they go about criticism of it very gingerly. Believe me, many newspapers were seriously hurt by the demonetization because of the amount of slush money they hold for paid news, which doesn't go onto the books. Okay? They were really hurt by that, and yet they went about it, criticizing it so gingerly. Look at it today. If you privatize Spectrum totally, who are the beneficiaries? Ambani's, Tata's, Birla's, amongst others, all of them major media owners. People seem to think that the Tatas don't associate with media. They are Tata Sky. They're in an alliance with the biggest media baron in history. Okay? You privatize mining. Who are the beneficiaries? Ambani's, Birla's, Tata's, and major advertisers and powerful other people, but many of them connected to media or media owners themselves. You privatize